In this video, I'm going to go over how I made this gown. It's in two pieces, the skirt and the top. It's an off-shoulder princess seam. And then in the back it closes with eyelets. And then the gown, it's hard to get it all on camera, is a mermaid skirt. And it's longer on the back than in the front. Oops. And then I'm going to be embellishing the top, something like this. And I'm going to embellish the skirt bottom as well. The skirt is unlined. It's finished with serger. And the top is completely lined. Print all the pattern pieces at 100%. And the skirt pieces are too long to fit in the letter paper, so they have symbols so that you can join them to the corresponding pieces to make the complete piece. Sew the side fronts to the front panel. After sewing the fronts together, I'm going to sew the sides, the back sides to the front. And then after that, I'll sew the center back to the back. After sewing and serging all the skirt panels, and I serged the bottom hem, also the bottom hem of the waistband facing, I'm going to attach the facing to the waistband. Now, I attached the waistband and understitched it so it folds down nicely. And now I'm going to sew the back. Leaving the waist part open. Then I tack down the waistband facing with some invisible stitching, and our skirt is almost done. If you want to leave the hem simple, just fold it up and hem it. I'm going to attach lace around the edge of the hem. And then for the closing, I'm just going to put a snap here at the closing. For the bodice, I need to cut, first of all, I have it layered like this because this will be the one fabric. Because this is sheer, so I line it with that. And then I'm going to cut the lining pieces out of this fabric again. So I'll need one piece of the front bodice and one piece for the lining. And then two pieces of this fabric, 2 and 2, and 2 again of the lining. And cut them on the grain. I printed the pattern twice and I decided to make my lining out of this bodice fabric. It gives it a little more body, and then the main fabric will be the pink. So the first step in the construction of the bodice, I'm going to put my lining pieces to the side. It's going to be attach the center front to the sides front, and we're going to sew on this seam. And then for the back, I'm going to sew the back bodice to the side bodice Now that the front pieces are sewn together, we're going to sew here and here at the sleeve part of the neck. And it's important not to sew the sides first, because this is going to be a lined piece. And depending on the fabric that you're using, you don't really need to serge it. I serged it because this fabric is, it unravels a lot and it still shows through the outside, so I wanted to make sure it looks nice. So pin your shoulders and sew your shoulders. Now that we have the shoulders attached, trim it, but don't serge it because we don't want any bulk in this area. So we're gonna put this to the side for now, and we're gonna work on the facing. So the facing, we're gonna do the same steps that we did for this. Attach our side fronts, attach our sides back, and then attach them at the shoulder. Now my lining and my top are done. So the next step is to put them together. And I'm gonna sew right sides facing together. Sew the top edge of the neck. For now, just the top edge. Now that the top edge of the neck is all sewn, I'm going to understitch it on the facing side. So your seam will be under the facing, and you do a little stitch very close to the seam line. So the top is done, the understitching is done. See how the understitching helps the top fold nicely. Now we're going to sew the armhole opening. And it's important to be very precise here with your seam, because we're gonna take this and turn it around through here. We're gonna turn it right side out. And at this point also, it's probably a good idea to mark the seam allowance here at this corner. So sew the entire armhole. Again, still leaving the sides opening. Do the same thing on the other side. I erased the markings, and I'm going to put a drop of, before clipping into the corner here, I'm going to put a drop of seam sealant just outside the stitching line. And also, I didn't do it on this one because I forgot, but it's a good idea to, on the corners here, make your stitches a little bit shorter. Shorten your stitch length. And now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to reinforce, do some stay stitching on the outside corners of this and this end, just on the very outside, so that when I'm turning it around, it doesn't unravel so much. Because we're going to put this part through here and then bring it out to turn it inside out. I'm just going to wait till the seam sealant dries out. Now that the seam sealant is done, I'm going to clip the corner right to the turn there, making sure not to clip the stitches. And I'm going to trim my seams. And do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now I did my stay stitching all the way around, just to prevent all this fraying. And I'm going to turn the back part through the arm opening. So I'm going to use my forceps here. I just pinch the ends. And I'm going to bring it through. Once you have a little bit out, you can do it by hand. Because I'm afraid these forceps could rip the fabric. So you just kind of ease it out. It takes a little time. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And that's why you want to reinforce your fabric too, because this part, it's easy to mess it up. Here you go. Now once you turn it inside out, I'm going to go ahead and press that after I turn the other side. You have to be patient with this step. I'm going to try just pulling one side at a time. See if this works better. Yeah, I think it works better that way. Instead of trying to pull both sides together, just clip it on one end and then pull the rest of it out. So now I'm going to go ahead and press this. Now that it's nicely pressed, the next step is to sew the sides. And the way we're going to sew the sides is attaching them like this on the underside, the lining to the lining, and the main fabric to the main fabric. Make sure you match the underarms really good. So that the seam doesn't show on the outside at all. So like this. Then we're gonna sew here and do the same thing for the other side. Now my sides are sewn, and I'm gonna go ahead and trim the seams a little bit, especially under the arm here. You can also clip it if you want. I'm just trimming those whiskers off. And then at this point, you make sure you don't have any threads in the inside that are going to show on the outside, especially if you have a very sheer fabric. And we're going to go ahead and sew the bottom of it. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to encase the whole thing, the top, and put your right sides together. I believe this is called the burrito method. And then pin. Carefully matching your seams. Okay, now I'm gonna sew it all the way around, starting at one end, all the way around, and I'm gonna stop and leave an opening on one side of the back. So I'm gonna leave about an inch opening, and I'm gonna leave the opening in the middle so that my corners are nice. I'll sew up to here, leave an opening, and finish it up over here. Now I'm sewing all the way around, and what I'll do is I'll clip my corners and trim the seams. On this side, I'm just trimming the hairs because this is where I left the opening, and I want to make sure that that I have enough seam to turn. In fact, what I'll do is I'll press it before I turn it so that I already have my my fold. And then these you can trim to about an eighth of an inch, more or less. I find that there's really no need for clipping because it's on the bias, so it'll turn out nicely. On this side you can clip it. Make sure you clip the corner. And make sure you clip the corner on the top here. So now we're gonna turn this around to the right side. Make sure you've gotten rid of all your whiskers. You don't want to close it with all those threads showing on the other side. So I'm going to do the same thing I did. Just put my forceps through, grab a bit of the fabric, and wrap this in. And I'm not pressing my forceps too tight because I don't want to rip the fabric, just enough so that it'll hold. Once my fabric is peeking through, I just do it by hand. And just turn it carefully. It's a lot easier than turning it through the sleeves. Okay, and then once it's all turned right side out, just gonna use my I don't know what this is called. And pull my corners nice. And I'm being careful not to rip anything or this tool through the fabric. Now all that's left to do is to press it, and once I press it, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little invisible stitch to close that opening. And then the top is done. Now I'm going to add eyelets to the back. And first I want to reinforce this, and I'm using lace to reinforce it. I'm not going to sew it on there. I'm just going to lay it there. This is like a grosgrain lace. Cut it so that it doesn't show on the top. It's not lace, it's called ribbon. And I like this ribbon because it doesn't fray too much right away. But I'm still going to put some seam sealant on the ends. And you can pin it, but the pins will be on the way when I'm making the holes for the eyelets and making the eyelets. So what I do is I glue it just with plain old school glue. That's just gonna hold it temporarily there. And just put it where your eyelets are gonna be. And then I'm gonna mark my holes. I'm gonna mark them on the outside. You can eyeball this if you want. The important thing is to be precise. And I mark the straight line, how they're gonna go, and then I'll mark a cross line where I'm gonna make the hole. And you only have to mark them on one side because what we're gonna do is we're gonna match the sides together. And I am gonna put a pin on here. Just so that they don't shift. And then I'm gonna make the holes through all the fabric pieces. Okay, now they're all done, and I'm going to pull them apart and put some seam sealant again. It'll drop on every hole. Then I'll let that dry and put in my eyelets. You can do snaps if you want, and if you want to do snaps, just add 1/4 of an inch to this pattern piece here to make it longer so that it overlaps, because I made this so it doesn't overlap. And these are the snaps that I'm going to use, the eyelets I mean. And you just put them through. These are really cute, they're tiny. They are from Making Memories. So I'm going to be putting all my eyelets in. And then the piece will be ready for embellishments. This is just a base pattern, and I made it so that I can add some embellishments around the collar. You can do some lace or whatever you want to do. Now I added my grommets. They're a little off a little bit, but at least across they're even. And I'll try it on my dowel, and I'll lace it up on the dowel after I embellish it.